Way too much grass in one place.
I know. They don't feel comfortable. They don't feel comfortable with that.
Well, you guys might sit on their lap, back up that far.
Okay, well, I'll get out of your way. There you go.
On this historic day, it's turned out to be a great day, and we want to welcome everybody as we celebrate our sesquicentennial, and we're glad that you're here, and we're going to keep this thing kind of moving. These guys got to be warm in these suits. So again, welcome to Mount Carroll, and let's enjoy the festivities, and thank you.
Tuesday, October 6th, was gray and rainy, but as the papers of the day reported, the weather didn't dampen the spirits of those in attendance. In fact, one paper said, if the day had been fine, the town would have been overrun. As it was, the extra eating establishments set up in anticipation of the crowds were swamped with customers. I quote, "Every empty building, every available nook and corner was turned into an eating establishment. All sorts of meals were dealt out, from the dainty diet of the aristocrat to the wayfarer sandwich, until no one with a nickel to spare was hungry. Private homes had been readied for out-of-towners to rest because this was going to be an all-day affair. Mount Carroll school children and their teachers had been given a holiday to participate. There were grumbles from the editor of the Savannah newspaper that they were irritated at hearing complaints from Mount Carroll. The Savannah schools weren't represented. Savannah didn't want to stop school for what they saw as a Mount Carroll event. He responded that transportation had not been set up for them and they weren't notified to suspend school. Perhaps they didn't attend due to miscommunication, despite the fact that the memorial and the preparation for its dedication was a constant topic of the county supervisors' meetings. These were published in the papers for a year prior. It's worth considering that small towns have long memories, and Mount Carroll's founders did remove the county seat from Savannah. The students and their teachers were joined in the parade by bands from Savannah, Shannon, Chadwick, and Zion, and a drum corps from Lanark. Hose companies from the fire departments, patriotic organizations joined. They met near the seminary, which is now where Campbell Center is today, at 11 o'clock that morning. They marched north on Clay Street, west on Market to the Mill, back up Market to walk south on Main Street to Union School Square. That's where the school children left the parade. So see, they walked pretty far in those days. The rest counter-marched to the courthouse square, where they were dismissed until 1:30 for their dinner, until an opening prayer and music introduced Mount Carroll Mayor Nathaniel Melody. His welcome was followed by many more speeches until the numbers in attendance lessened as the late afternoon rain increased and the program ended before all had had their say. But the monument speaks for itself. It's 1,284 names, too many to fit, so that an annex, which you see behind us, was designed to record the rest. Too many to fit. That is a sobering thought. The annex was designed by Carroll County native John S. Hall. He served as a private in the infantry and survived the infamous Andersonville prison. He is a relative of Ann Atkins Birch of Mount Carroll and the late Elmer, Mr. and Mrs. Wilma Pollock. Many others have told me that they have relatives whose names are on the monuments we see here today. So this is in fact a living monument. But did you know that some names were actually erased from this monument? They were written larger than the names of those who died in the war. They were engraved without the consent of the county board. Whose names? How did the names come to be there? Who knew? Leave them? Delete them? The controversy played out in the newspaper editorials, county board meetings from September 1891, about a month before the dedication, through April the next year of 1892. For the names were those of the men on the Monument Committee. Calvin Fieser, editor of the Democrat, said, and here I quote, "Some of the Monument Committee, actuated by false pride and vanity, took undue advantage of their power, and in the hope of perpetuating their names, invaded the sanctity of the whole affair, marred the noble structure by having the names of the entire committee chiseled in large letters on its most conspicuous part, thus putting an end to the harmony and good with which should prevail on this occasion." In the end, Frank A. Emmer, an experienced marble cutter from Lanark, was paid to remove the names so as to be impossible to detect any trace of the work done. Now, the statistics of the monument's construction have been written about in many places, but a lesser-known fact is that the monument was proposed first in 1865, again in 1887, but finally, after the Civil War Sailors and Soldiers Reunion in 1889, the project received enough votes in the county board to proceed. The deadline for its completion by designer George Mitchell of Chicago had to be changed at least twice. Even the monument wasn't done by the time of the dedication. The stone steps behind me were not in place either. Only the flag, or standard bearer, stood at the top. The infantrymen and the cavalrymen had to be added perhaps a month later, since the November 26, 1891 issue of the Savannah newspaper says, "The monument is now completed." The cavalryman is of special interest because its image is modeled on Lanark resident Lewis Frecker, a member of the County Board of Supervisors and the Monument Committee. This statue is the one sculpted by Lorado Taft. It faces northeast toward the bank on Market Street. The walking tour sign and websites need to be corrected because the standard bearer on top of this monument is not the one done by Taft. And Laredo's Taft is misspelled on the sign. Laredo's mother spelled his name with an A. Mount Carroll native Dana Touts is related to Lewis Frecker. That brings us back to where we started, talking about names. The names on the monument were to honor the fallen, not the committee members, and all of the names of the fallen could not fit on the monument erected to their memory. And it is in their memory we are gathered here today.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Warren. I'm the sheriff, and by statute, I'm the keeper of the courthouse. So I would like to thank everyone for coming out today for this rededication of the Civil War Veterans Monument. There's a lot of history in this courtyard and on these grounds. The courthouse and jail that were built in 1853 right behind you are still in use as a jail and as a government building. Taxpayers got their money out of the old people. That place. 164 years later, we're still using it. In 1873, a public hanging took place in this courtyard. Nothing remains of that day. Even the tree next door to the gallows erected died a short time after that. In 1891, what would become the cornerstone of the courtyard was built. The Veterans Monument that we rededicate today was established by and for the veterans of the Grand Army of the Republic. We want to say thanks to those veterans of the past for their commitment and sacrifice that the Union was saved. And to the veterans who are here with us today, I want to say thank you for your sacrifice. Because of you and those veterans before you, we live in a free nation that's in the end of the world. While today has been dedicated to the heroes of the past, I'd like to take a brief moment to thank the unsung heroes who are here amongst us. They are your sons and daughters, brothers and sisters, and moms and dads. They are the first responders. Firemen, correction officers, EMTs, police, and dispatchers, they answer your phone when you call for help. They are in every big city and small town across the United States of America. They bandage the hurt, they run into burning buildings, and they are our first line of defense against evil and chaos. The ones that are here today are our guardian angels. So to all of you today, I say thank you for what you do. You men and women are awesome, and it needs to be said more often. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Richard Ottens, the commander of the Mount Carroll American Legion Post 67, and I'm proud to be a member of this post for the last 23 years. Mr. Len Anderson asked me if I would say a few words on this occasion of the rededication of this wonderful Civil War monument during the year-long sesquicentennial celebration of this beloved city. I'm not sure if you're aware of this or not, but this monument has world-class awareness in the Guinness World Book of Records for the most names on any civilian war monument in the United States of America. Carved in this granite are the names of 1,284 military members who joined in on the fight to abolish slavery during the years of 1861 to 1865. All the names hand-carved on this granite are names of Carroll County, Illinois. One more note. The grandfather of Patricia Hartman of Mount Carroll here, wife of Legionnaire Jim Hartman, Josiah Shamal, was contracted to dig out the footings for the base of this monument back in the spring and summer of 1891. Lastly, this monument has and will continue to stand the test of time and weather for generations to come. As there has been since it was erected, may there always be the swelling of pride and gratefulness in the souls of all who come to see and witness this inspiring monument. May God bless all these military members who gave their lives on the home front battlefields, both large and small, to save liberty and the union of these United States, to abolish slavery. Thank you for this time to speak, and in closing, God bless the U.S. militaries of the past, of today, and the future, and God bless America. Thank you.
Next up, I'm Jeff Cromer. I was born and raised here in Mount Carroll, and I like to think that my great-grandfather Herman Cromer was in the picture posted on that postcard. I've been here for 4 generations. My pleasure to be here today. Well, it's a great day today as we gather to rededicate this Civil War memorial. Over 100 years ago, like-minded men and women conceived of this great monument out of the contemporary memories of the men who served in the greatest struggle this nation has ever experienced. About the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln succinctly put it, both parties deprecated war, but one of them would make war rather than let the nation survive, and the other would accept war rather than let it perish. And the war came. And after that, over 4 years of terrible war ensued. Our nation tore itself apart in a horrific conflict. An internal civil war that defines us as a nation today, one nation under God, with liberty and justice for all. It is good to remember, it is right and decent we pay tribute to those who have given their lives in service in the defense of our nation, and no conflict in history has cost our nation more than our own Civil War. We only have estimates of actual casualties, but official records say that over 800,000 Americans lost their lives in battlefields, and from infectious wounds, and from famine, and in the prison war camps. A number that is greater than all of the losses from all of our wars combined. And over 250,000 Illinoisans were recruited, forming into 1,500 regiments throughout the war, more than any other northern state except for New York. Of those numbers, over 1,200 came from the farms and villages of our own Carroll County, representing nearly a quarter of the county's population at the time. They volunteered, trained, traveled, fought and died in engagements chiseled in our nation's history and upon the faces of this monument. Atlanta, Chickamauga, Corinth, Fort Donelson, Gettysburg, Hatches Bridge, Nashville, Resaca, Stone River, Shiloh, Vicksburg, and the Wilderness. Because of this test our nation's soul, we have survived and thrived as a people who believed in and lived by the hallowed precepts of liberty, freedom, justice, and the pursuit of happiness, having protected these beliefs at the cost of our own national blood and treasure, as evidenced by the names forever inscribed on these hallowed granite. Today, we again pay tribute to the memory, we proudly proclaim their self-sacrifice, and we rededicate this monument and ourselves to the remembering and upholding the sacred cause for which they fought and for which they died. Francis Scott Key prophetically saw the cost of preserving our nation as he wrote, "Will thus be it ever, when free men shall stand between their loved homes and war's dissolution. Blessed in victory and peace, may our heaven-rescued land praise the power that has made and created us a nation. But conquer we must if our cause is just, and that this be our motto, and God is our trust. And the Star-Spangled Banner forever shall wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave."
Greetings, fellow citizens. Can you hear me? Can everyone hear me? As you know, my name is Ulysses S. Grant from Galena, Illinois, home to 9 Civil War generals. Many wonder how Galena could have been home to 9 Civil War generals. Keep in mind, however, a number of things. In 1861, at the outbreak of the Civil War, Galena was one of Illinois' largest and most influential cities, with a population of just over 12,000. Also the largest riverboat port north of St. Louis for 20 years. And home to Elihu Washburn, a senior Republican in the U.S. House of Representatives and one of the most influential members. He was instrumental in furthering my military and political career. Not all Galena's generals achieved the rank during hostilities. Some were given the rank for services rendered, a common practice at that time. And it was my great honor to have served our country with such a fine group of fighting men as them. I will introduce these gentlemen in a few minutes. "150 years ago, this community was established. Beautiful community of Mount Carroll. How time flies, right? Well, I know very well, I'm 195. Well, I'd like to go ahead and go into the program here. In the decades following the Civil War, statues like this were erected all over the country. However, not as many as nice. To honor the veterans and the fallen soldiers from the war, Memorial Day began to celebrate nationally as a day to honor fallen Civil War fatalities, originally called Decoration Day, as well as Remembrance Day, created to honor those who fell victim to the perils of the most gruesome war, the Civil War. It was well needed, as an estimated over 750,000 soldiers died in the conflict. 20% of all males 20 to age 45 years old. 25,000 in POW camps alone. 121 from Carroll County. Over 52,000 men died in a 3-day conflict at Gettysburg. The Civil War was a human massacre that would not be tolerated today. Since then, the passing of time has led to the advancement of American lives. Today, we enjoy a high standard of living due to the freedoms that we have continued to fight for. 2 world wars, conflicts all over the globe. As generations pass and the distance of it becomes longer, it is easy to forget the bloodiest war of all, the Civil War. The battle between the states, the War of the Rebellion. In the North, some call it the War of the Union, while Southerners call it the War of Southern Independence. African Americans call it the Freedom War. In Europe, they call it the War of Secession. The American Civil War lost lives in the line of duty over 2%. Taken as a percentage in today's population, the toll would be over 6 million souls. It was a commonplace to see men without arms during the remainder, legs and arms during the remainder of the 1800s. Today, as we hear news reports of conflicts from around the world on our television sets, we must have perspective on the ongoing cost of freedom and reflect on the era when combat was more rusty, more barbaric, more deadly on our own soil. Many can trace our families to one who served and paid the ultimate price. At this time, I would like to introduce the following generals, all from Galena, a tiny town that produced more generals of any city in the country during the Civil War. If I had not won the presidency, perhaps they would be a household name too. But I would start with Major General John Eugene Smith. Major General Shetland. My Chief of Staff, Major General John A. Rawlins. Jasper Maltby, who served a lot. And Brigadier General John Corson Smith. At this time, the generals will read the Carroll County soldiers who gave their lives in the Civil War.
Joseph Albright, Warren Aldrich, Rufus Alvord, Jacob Bacon, John Barr, Corporal Charles Beers, Edgar Bennett, Nathan Bevins, John Bollinger, Samuel Bollinger, Benjamin Bernard, Seneca Bristol, Josiah Burnett, Henry Carpenter, John Carr, Jasper Childers, Corporal Johnson Clark, Thomas Clark, Benjamin Coates, First Lieutenant David Kohlhauer, Stephen Collier, Owen Connellan, Martin Crampton, Edward Crawford, Edwin Cross. Charles Davis. Thomas Davis.
David S. Deering, Corporal E.S. W. Barrett, William H. Deinhardt, Leonard Gobner, Nathan H. Downing, Sergeant Charles H. Dunshee, George W. Dunshell, Leroy J. Duran, Edgar A. Dyer, Thomas H. Emerist, Benjamin F. Elshman, Newton Fife, James I. Fleming, William Forsythe, Alexander Frazier, Leslie Gaylord, William C. Gill, Joseph Gordon, Wilson S. Gottschall, Daniel J. Graham, Levi Gregerson, Louis Guy, William Geyer, George S. Hall, William H. Harding, Jonas Harsh, and Joseph Eligi. Captain Amos W. Hosted, Francis Jarvis, Corporal Clark Johnson, Samuel M. Johnson, Henry Kiefer, Sidney D. Kenyon, Judith Ham B. Kenyon, Robert S. Knox, Corporal George H. Trigler, Leo Lawrence, Jacob Leonard, Joseph M. Lovelace, Martin L. Lower, Augustus Lowry, Daniel J. Mackey, Hiram H. Maynard, John McFadden, John McKee, Corporal Joseph N. McKee, Charles McLaren, William P. McWorthy, Charles A. Meade, Philip Meade, William A. Meade, Isaac Michael, Frederick Craig Miller, and Daniel Nisner. First Lieutenant George Moore, Richard Morford, Derek Mund, Maroney Myers, Edward O'Donnell, James O'Neill, Wagner Paul D. Otis, Robert Pittman, William H. Rice, George Robbins, Thomas S. Root, Louis Rowley, John H. Ruggles, Corporal Albert G. Russell, Joseph Sawyer, Thomas M. Shore, David Simmons, John Simmons, Elias W. Smith, James P. Smith, John F. Smith, James W. Stahl, Barnhart Stedman, Captain William Stouffer, Benjamin F. Strickler, Henry Thomas, Andrew Thorpe.
Jesse Tilley, John Tobine, David Vaughn, Elias Venable, Isaac Wallace, Corporal William R. Waterbury, Assistant Surgeon Francis Weaver, Hugh Weston, Albert A. Wilder, Thomas Williams, First Lieutenant James A. Willis, Henry Wills, William H. Wood, John H. Allison, Quartermaster Abraham Beeler, William C. Benfield, Jesse N. Berlin, Corporal James A. Bigger, Robert Bradley, William Buffington, Mark Carr, Leroy L. Chase, John Clauser, George W. Downs, James H. Dwinell, William H. Eddy, Major Leander B. Fisk.
Thomas Forsyth, Richard Renning, James Hollett, James Heisler, Levi Hughes, Sergeant Hollis Hurd, Alex Jackson, James Johnston, Thomas King, Peter Lang, Corporal James Masters, Elihu McWilliams, First Sergeant John Peterball, William Reynolds, James Rhodes, John Richards, Corporal John Schaefer, Jacob Sellers, George Smith, John A. Smith, John C. Smith, Henry Thomas, Burton Turner, Charles Wheelock, George Williams, William Wolfley, and Corporal Chauncey Wooden.
Most of these men served in the Illinois 45th and gave the ultimate sacrifice. For they all fought for what they believed, both in the North and the South. Well, I would like to take a moment of silence for these men. Also, a moment of silence for the men and the women who still continue to fight for our freedom and protect the very soil that we stand on. Thank you. At this time there'll be a short drum roll, and then following will be taps from the American Legion Post 67. Detail, tin hut, present, harm.
My name is Judy Fitzpatrick. I'm on the Sesquicentennial Committee. We've been meeting since the end of 2015 to organize our different activities to celebrate our 150th anniversary as an incorporation of our city of Mount Carroll. Thank you for coming today. This was an event that we thought would be exciting, partnered with the car cruise, and we recently put lights on this monument so we can see it at night. And we need to thank Len and Linda Anderson for the donation of the lights so we can see this beautiful monument. And also Harrell Electric for installing the lights. Just a few announcements about what's coming up for the rest of our sesquicentennial year. On July 1st, we are having our annual fireworks and parade in Mount Carroll. We are going to do a special sesquicentennial theme for the parade, and the firemen have all kinds of activities lined up for kids at the football field, and they're having a pork chop dinner, I believe, at the fire station. July 15th, there is another car cruise. August 10th is Mount Carroll Night at Timberlake Playhouse. It is the opening night of Little Shop of Horrors, and we'll do some activities there. August 19th is another car cruise. August 26th is Brick Street Saturday. September 1st, we will have West Carroll, Mount Carroll Blast from the Past football extravaganza. We'll have our football game played at the Mount Carroll football field for one of the games. It won't be in Savannah, it'll be at the old Mount Carroll football field. That will be exciting. In September, the 8th, 9th, and 10th, we will have a Civil War encampment at Point Rock Park. So if you could join us for that, that'll be really neat too. We have another car cruise September 16th. We have Oktoberfest September 30th at Timberlake Resort, and there will be a Price is Right game out there and an Oompa band and beer. We will have, this will be really exciting, here at the Courthouse Square we will have a Lincoln Douglas debate on October 7th. We'll have Lincoln and Douglas debating each other at 1 p.m. on October 7th. October 15th we will have a church tour and a sesquicentennial birthday party from 1:30 to 4:30, starting at the community house and ending at the Church of God. October 28th, we will have Pumpkin Fest, and December 2nd, we have our Christmas walk and our tour of homes. So if you can join us for any of these other activities, that would be great. We are proud to celebrate our 150th anniversary of our incorporation as a city. And thank you very much for coming. Thanks to the Galena Generals for making this a very special event in their lives.
Thanks, Judy. That committee's worked so hard to make this town really a great year-long celebration. And the ladies are so beautiful today. Let's give them applause. Obviously, the car cruise, we're trying to keep quiet mufflers on today. But the car cruise we started a number of years ago, and I started reminiscing just quickly about that. When this was dedicated, 1891, to come to this event like we have, it was probably a day trip by horse and back to wherever you came from. The counties were formed basically, I think, on time to get to the courthouse. If I remember right, it's a time lapse. You had to come and go back in the same day. So that's how counties kind of got their boundaries. But we have cars now coming 200 miles to our car cruise to get here, and well, Jeff don't hear this, no. They get here very quickly, but within the law. So this was great, but it's what an honor, and what an honor for our veterans who are in attendance today, and thank you for your service and so much you do and have done. And we at night I sometimes walk around and I look at these names on this monument. You can read them sometimes clearer, and it's just an eye opener. And the beautiful flags, the detail in this monument, and what it stands for, and all the sacrifice that was given around this country at that time of our country, which is we held together. So I just want to thank you to come. The car cruise is going to be starting up. So we want you to stay, but if you are parked in some of these streets, we might be a little bit but if if you can move a little to the side streets, would be great. But thank you for coming, and the shops are all open. Don't hurry away. The food's going to be good in town, and it'll just be a fun night in town, so please just continue with that, and thank you again.
One more thing, we have a sesquicentennial quilt, and we have raffle tickets for sale, $1 for each ticket, or 6 tickets for $5. And we also have historic postcards from the 1891 dedication for $1 each, if you'd like to come over and purchase one. Thank you for coming.
And we also had a Civil War surgeon. I know. Yeah. Who was credited with I heard that. Implementing sanitation. Credited with saving.
That's what I'm afraid of. It's kind of cool, but at the same time, it's like, man, I'm really gonna regret this. Target somewhere where I don't have to worry about the beer. Oh, I want to burger. Okay. I gotta see how that